Hello there, this is the World News at 12 on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. I am Solomon Offem. First, our top stories. Federal government approves a policy to regulate trade unions' activities that promote strike. LASU faces shutdown as ASUU, SSANU and other staff unions begin indefinite strike. Marketers warned against disruption as Dangote plans direct fuel supply. Federal government eyes 796 billion naira annually from 5% petrol surcharge. Biodun Olujimi downplays ADC, believing the party doesn't have clout to defeat Tinubu in 2027. Outside Nigeria, Trump sets new tariffs on dozens of countries' export. And in sport, Victor Osimhen completes transfer to Galatasaray in record €75 million deal. Those are our top stories. Details coming up in just a moment. In a bid to curtail incessant industrial actions by trade unions, the federal government has approved the National Industrial Relations Policy (NIRP) 2025 to check strikes. This came as the government said that the contentious circular that precipitated the recent strike by health workers has been withdrawn. Meanwhile, the government will meet with the striking nurses today. Meanwhile, organized labor has vowed to resist any attempt by external forces to cause disunity between the Nigeria Labour Congress (NLC) and the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria (TUC), so as to weaken the agitation for workers' welfare. As nationwide warning strike declared by the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives, Federal Health Institution Sector (NANNM) FHI enters day 3, the union has insisted that the federal government must act first and accede to some of its key demands. Nurses and midwives as well as medical doctors embark on strike over a poor welfare package. Briefing State House correspondent at the end of the Federal Executive Council FEC meeting presided by President Bola Tinubu, the Minister of Information and National Orientation Mohammed Idris explained that the new policy will regulate activities of trade unions. He said the National Industrial Relations Policy for the country stems from the need to have a guiding policy document aimed at fostering harmonious industrial relations within the workplace for both employers and employees. Still on strike issues, the staff unions of Lagos State University have declared an indefinite strike effective immediately over unresolved issues with the university management. The Joint Action Committee, comprising Academic Staff Union of Universities, Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, Non-Academic Staff Union, and National Association of Academic Technologists, announced the decision in a late letter dated July 31, 2025, addressed to Vice Chancellor Professor BME Olatunji Bello. The notice was signed by ASUU LASU Chairman and Secretary Professor Ibrahim A. Bakari and Sylvester Owidowu, PhD, respectively, as well as SSANU LASU Chairman and Secretary Oluwaseyi Lawal and Wahid Majekodunmi, respectively. The release directed all members of staff of the university and its affiliate campuses at the Lagos State University College of Medicine, LASUCOM, Ikeja and Lagos State University, Ekpe campus to withdraw their service and vacate their official duty post with immediate effect. Meanwhile, the university students were supposed to commence the 2024-2025 second semester examination next week, Monday. The Natural Oil and Gas Suppliers Association of Nigeria (NOGASA) has warned that the Dangote petroleum refineries plan to bypass existing distribution channels and supply a refined petroleum product directly to end users would lead to a nationwide disruption, long-term product scarcity, and the collapse of existing supply networks. The oil and gas suppliers called on the refineries to halt its plan and seek further dialogue before commencing the distribution of product to end users, urging it to learn from what happened to non-functioning refineries under the management of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. They also called on the President Bola Tinubu to intervene in the issue, stressing that Dangote alone cannot handle nationwide distribution of product sustainably. The Nogasa National President Bernard Kore made the call during the association's annual general meeting in Abuja. However, an official of the Dangote Group described the position of the leaders as anti-Nigeria, arguing that the plan by Dangote was to remove the cost of logistics in the movement of petrol nationwide. Meanwhile, reacting to the development, the national president of the Petroleum Products Retail Outlet Owners Association of Nigeria, Petroan, Billy Gillis-Harry, said Nigerians should not rejoice over the announcement by the Dangote refinery, as it backed the sister oil marketing group Nogasa. Recall that the $20 billion Dangote refinery recently disclosed plans to deploy 4,000 new compressed natural gas powered tankers for nationwide distribution of petrol and diesel directly to marketers, manufacturers, telecom firms, aviation companies, and other large consumers, bypassing traditional depots and intermediary distributions. The federal government may rake in 796 billion naira annually from the introduction of a 5% surcharge on locally produced and imported petrol based on a new tax policy slated to take effect from January 1, 2026, according to analysis revealed. The 5% surcharge on a refined petroleum product is contained in the Nigeria Tax Administration Act, one of 4 tax reform bills signed into law by President Bola Tinubu in June 26, 2025. However, consumers have opposed the move, stressing that the government had earlier removed fuel subsidies and now plots to impose a 5% surcharge on fuel without considering the harsh economic realities nationwide. This came as oil marketers stated that the 5% surcharge may further hike the pump prices of refined petroleum product. The surcharge forms part of the government efforts to shore up non-oil revenues and promotes fiscal sustainability amid mounting public debt and subsidy-related costs. The policy targets fossil fuel products provided or produced in Nigeria. Fossil fuel products include petrol, diesel, kerosene, aviation fuel, and compressed natural gas, among others. They are derived from the processing of fossil fuels such as coal, petroleum, and natural gas. However, items expected from the new tax are clean or renewed energy products, as well as household kerosene, cooking gas, and compressed natural gas. And now to party politics, where a former deputy governor of Ekiti State, Senator Biodun Olujumi, has said that Peter Obi's eloquence, which played a major role in his performance in the 2023 presidential election, will not pose a threat to the second-term bid of President Bola Tinubu in the 2027 presidential poll. In a television interview with Shehu Kibaloye, she downplayed the coalition platform under the African Democratic Congress (ADC) and believes the party does not have the clout to defeat incumbent President Tinubu in the 2027 election. The senator, who is also a former minority leader of the Senate, said that with President Tinubu's political experience, it will be difficult to defeat him in 2027. Olujimi says she joined the APC because its leadership is pragmatic and resolute, noting that the party she used to criticize is different now. She said though it was not fair that she dumped the People's Democratic Party (PDP) and gave her political prominence, the opposition party lost traction. She said her supporters at the grassroots were happy that she left the PDP. Speaking further, Olujimi says she would rather leave the PDP than remain in the party that work against it.
Degree thing, and it's not easy to achieve, not with a politician at the helm of affairs in the center. This is the first time we're having a dyed-in-the-wool politician as president. He knows his onions. He knows all of us. He's been in the system for very long.
So it's going to be difficult to beat him.
It's tough.
Not even from any candidate from the north.
This is a man who has worked with everyone, who has been useful to everyone. who has had opportunities to assist governments. So beating him, uphill task.
Not even the PDP can do that. In that shape.
Not in that shape. No.
But that's sad.
It is.
Because if we ride on like that, without any challenge, I know the ADC said he's beatable. And El-Rufai said, look, they will send the president back, and they will send him back to Lagos. And they've shown that there could be an incursion into the political sphere where the president plays well. Peter Obi has shown us that no matter where your forte is, you can be dealt with. And he beat the president in his home state of Lagos. So anything can happen. Do you see any surprises springing up? 2 years is still a far off time.
2 years is far off, but you see, there won't be surprises. Too many. Yes, people will have votes, but they'll never come close.
Even with Seyi Makinde from Oyo State, if he imagines...
He's a good man, hard worker. He has done so much for Oyo State. But Oyo State alone cannot come into this fray and make a difference.
You heard that Peter Obi is likely to return to the PDP.
Yeah.
Even with that?
The rhetorics of the last elections will not work again, except he comes with another gimmick. And you see, this is a politician, a man who knows the terrain well. My brother, it's tough.
It is now time for us to join Folashade Adigun from our Abuja studio for more news.
Good afternoon. Here are the major news. I am Folashayo Adigun. The Every Home a Garden project, spearheaded by First Lady Oluremi Tinubu, is recording major success in the Federal Capital Territory. FCT coordinator of the project and mandate secretary for the FCT Women Affairs Secretariat, Adedayo Benjamin Laniyi, stated this during the closeout ceremony of the 2024 cohort of the Renewed Hope Initiative Garden Competition in Abuja. She commended FCT women for their enthusiastic participation, describing the initiative as a huge success. The project, which is part of the RHI Agricultural Support Program, is designed to promote self-reliance, improve household nutrition, and foster economic empowerment through backyard gardening, particularly among rural women. Benjamin Laniyi explained that the competition was launched in July 2023 to encourage women across the 36 states and the FCT to embrace home gardening as a sustainable livelihood practice. The Federal Capital Territory is targeting nearly 1 million children for its 2025 seasonal malaria chemo prevention campaign. Speaking at a press briefing in Abuja, the state project manager of the PFSMC program, Olutomi Shodikpo, said the intervention aims to reach 983,497 children aged 3 to 59 months, the age group most vulnerable to malaria due to weaker immune systems. She explained that the program, introduced in the FCT in 2022 under the coordination of the National Malaria Elimination Program and the FCT Malaria Elimination Program, is supported by Malaria Consortium with technical and financial aid. Shodikba noted that the campaign uses a door-to-door approach with trained community drug distributors administering a monthly 3-day dose of sulfadoxine, pyrimethamine, and amodiaquine, known as SPAQ, from June to October, the peak malaria season. To increase coverage, she said faith-based organizations are also being engaged as distribution points. However, she highlighted some challenges, including inconsistent guideline adherence, poor house marking, and incomplete data reporting. She urged caregivers to grant access to drug distributors and ensure children complete the full dosage for effective protection. The lingering conflicts between herders and farmers in Gwafata community, Ibwa ward of Gwagwalada Area Council, has escalated again, claiming more lives. 2 vigilantes were reportedly killed while 4 herders sustained serious injuries in the latest clash on Wednesday. Earlier, reports hazarded that the crisis began on Tuesday after a farmer, allegedly attacked by others on his farm, died in hospital. A reprisal attack by villagers left 2 herders injured and several huts in the herders' camp razed. Chairman of the council, Abubakar Jibrin Giri, had mobilized security operatives to calm the situation. However, shortly after the officials departed the community, fresh violence broke out. The village head of Gwafata Sabo, Haruna Danladi, confirmed the incident in a telephone interview on Thursday. He said the violence resumed hours after the burial of the slain farmer Dahiru Yakubu. A tragic case of suspected suicide has been reported in the Saburi 2 area of Abuja, where a young man identified as Stephen Chudubem was found dead in his residence on Abba Street behind the Anglican Church. According to reports shared by security analyst Zagazola Makama, Chudubem was discovered hanging from a ceiling fan, having used a rope to take his own life. Emergency responders evacuated the body to Kubwa General Hospital, where medical personnel confirmed him dead. His remains have since been deposited in the hospital's mortuary for autopsy. A suicide note recovered at the scene revealed that Chidubem had been battling a gambling addiction, which plunged him into severe debt and emotional distress. In the notes, he apologized to those who owed and expressed regrets for disappointing his friends. He also instructed that a balance of 507,500 naira be given to individuals identified as Elvis or Paul. The heartbreaking incident has renewed concerns about the rising toll of gambling addiction among young people in the country. Authorities are urging anyone facing similar struggles to seek immediate professional support. I am Folashayo Adigun.
That was Folashayo Adigun reporting from our studios in the nation's capital, Abuja. You are currently listening to the World News at 12 right here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. We'll go straight to our analysis segment where I have Tunde Kolawole, a legal practitioner and current affairs analyst, joining me this afternoon. Barrister Kolawole, thank you so much for joining us on the news at 12. Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I can hear you. Thank you for joining us on the news at 12.
Okay.
Let's quickly go to the first talking point where the federal government, in the bid to curtail incessant industrial action by trade unions, have approved the National Industrial Relations Policy NRP 2025 to checkmate strike. Now, critics are saying that this policy to checkmate and regulate trade unions' activities to promote strike will impede on the fundamental rights of unions to go on strike when they're not happy with government. What do you think about that?
Well, honestly speaking, that policy will appear to me to be a very retrogressive step. It is also not going to provide the right solution to the fears that the federal government, the state government, and the local government may have with regards to the rash and incessant strikes and withdrawal of labor in the industrial sector, in the civil service of the country. That policy also does not take a good cognizance of our history in this country. You will recollect that in Nigeria, we had only one central labor organization before, which was the Nigerian Labour Congress. Under President Obasanjo, because they thought the NSC was too powerful, when he was Minister of State, I think it was under him, they now said, let's break NSC and all that, create some other central labor organization so as to weaken labor and also make it a little bit more to curtail the incessant strike that we used to have in the country. And then they created the trade union congress and also some other labor centers and all that. But has that solved the problem of incessant strike in the country? The answer is no. The second issue is this. The people in government often forget that strikes and withdrawal of services and all that is a fundamental human right. You cannot be legislating on it outside the context of the Nigerian Constitution. The Constitution has amply provided that people have the rights and the means and the power to withdraw their labor when they feel aggrieved about any government policies or decisions that affects them. So, if that is the case and all that, when you now begin to legislate to curtail withdrawal of services, which is a fundamental human right and what have you, and the conditions or the reasons why people do engage in strikes and what have you has not been ameliorated, how are you going to solve the problem by merely pushing forward a policy paper to curtail industrial strikes? There have been so many policy papers in the past on LASU, on the Nigerian Medical Associations and what have you, the Railway Workers Union, and some of the otherwise militant labor organizations that we have in the country. It has never solved the problem. Rather, the government should address the issue of the deplorable situations in our health system. They should also provide, improve the working conditions of the nurses and the medical doctors and what have you. And furthermore, because I say this because the people in the health sector and the other sector of the economy, they hear and they are told and they read the kind of jumbo salaries and emolument that go to politicians and all that. They see it on a daily basis and all that. And then they begin to ask themselves, why can't we also be earning a pay that we take us not just home, but also to and from our work on a daily basis and be able to meet our basic obligations and all that. So, if labor is if withdrawal of services or strike and what have you, is a fundamental right, and if you take cognizance of our history as a nation, that this kind of policy has never worked and all that, I doubt it. Whether the new policy decisions or framework that the federal government is pushing forward, whoever. Also, don't forget, the former governor of Anambra State, Dr. who was health minister, he was minister of labor at one time or the other. I've forgotten his name.
Anambra or Edo State?
Anambra State. No, not at Anambra State. Anambra State. Who became health minister during Buhari's era, was he labor minister? He also floated all kinds of ideas and with regards to how to contain labor, strikes in the different sectors, especially with ASUU and the medical health worker. It never worked. So let's be realistic. They should rather address the challenges that are facing these sectors and start to make laws that would never that would be very difficult to implement or apply or to enforce.
The government have said, these policies stem from the need to have a guiding policy document aimed at fostering harmonious industrial relations within the workplace for both employers and employees. Is this not a valid reason?
No, we already have all that. For me, these are policies and overkill. Like I said, you are now aware that there's a Labour Act which guides all employees in this country as regards what they can do and what they cannot do. Also remember we have the National Industrial Court, which has been established to ensure that unnecessary withdrawal of services or strikes and all that they are addressed judicially. And then of course, like I said, there is also the Constitution in there which says, look, you cannot be forced to work, because when you force people to work, then you are enslaving them. And it also gives a guidelines regards how people can enforce or ask for remediation of their grievances. So the laws are already there. The Labour Act is there. The Constitution is there. The International Labour Organization by the United Nations affiliate or by OGAP is also there. So a plethora of labor government. Even you as a journalist, you have some policy papers and code of conduct and regulatory activity. Lawyers have, medical doctors have, nurses have. All
Every
these
profession have their ethics and regulations.
Exactly. So this is an overkill, just an attempt to shadow box the issues at stake.
Well, one thing is for sure, though, strikes are still going on because the staff unions of Lagos State University have declared an indefinite strike effective immediately over unresolved issues with the university management. That's a message by the Joint Action Committee. Most of the strikes, happen to be medical professionals and academics, which are two very key, how will I say, two very key industries that aid in the growth of a country, which is not exactly good news for Nigeria.
Yes, that is true. You see, the decadence in the educational sector and the health sector is great. It's unprecedented. We continue to see lack of equipment, especially in the public health sectors and what happens. The private sectors are doing well. One should be aware of that. One should take cognizance of it. Look at the Afe Babalola Medical School and all that. They're doing great jobs. There are also some other private hospitals in Lagos now and then in Abuja and all that are doing wonderful things. That people are now even coming from abroad to patronize those private institutions and what happens. But when you go to the public health sector and all that, that is not the case. Go to the orthopedic hospital in Igbobi, India. Most of the structures you find there were structures that were built by the colonial masters and then donations to them by people like Mobolaji Bank Anthony some years ago and a few donor agencies and what happens. The federal government is hardly having more to those infrastructure. How many orthopedic hospitals do we have in the country today? By my own reckoning, all the states of the federation by now should be having an orthopedic hospital because we see accidents happen on a daily basis, either domestically or on the road and what happens. But how many orthopedic hospitals have we added to the existing one that the colonial masters bequeathed to us when they were living? Also infrastructure. You go to College of Medicine in India and go and see the state of infrastructure that they have in there. How many of the public institutions can you find those infrastructure? And the public institution is supposed to even have better than Afe Babalola University because they have more resources and they have even more more staffers in some of those places. But you see, we dissipate a lot of energy, dissipate a lot of resources and materials on politics and leaving this health sector and educational sector unattended to. Look at the number of universities and polytechnics that have been established. Even under the present government, almost on a daily basis, you open the newspaper, you listen to radio, more universities, more colleges of education, more polytechnics have been established. When the other ones are not being properly financed. So, except we do the right thing, merely making legislations and then asking people to persevere will not work. I sympathize with the management of LASU simply because I know, their vice chancellor was my junior in the university, and then I'm aware that woman is a very diligent person. If she has the necessary resources, he will do everything that is necessary in that school. But you see, every day the population of students is expanding, but the resources are not being provided to match the population of students that are coming to these schools. You remember we once discussed on this platform that not less than 2 million, about 2 million of our children apply to the different schools on a yearly basis. So, for proper education. Yes, we are creating schools, but are we funding the school so as to be able to meet the needs of modern times? And more tragically, I think was it yesterday or was it last year I was telling you that I was on the webinar doing some seminars and what have you. When you're on the webinar, it's like you are in a classroom, in a practical classroom. So the rapport and everything is almost the same. But how many of our universities and polytechnics now teach their courses or they have do their programs on the webinar or through Zoom or through any of the social platforms? There are very few of them. It is not necessary to begin to put everybody within a physical environment alone. We could expand some of these older universities by providing them with the IT facilities to be able to accommodate more students without necessarily bringing those students.
And it doesn't help that our political elites, most of them, their children school outside of this country, so they really have nothing to benefit personally.
Exactly. Do you know it is also funny? I was reading this week, so I was in last week, that the senator and representatives are trying to make a law that all children of civil servants must not go to private schools, and that women not go to private school in Nigeria and then maybe abroad. So, but if their own children are going to private schools abroad and all that, how will you now say you want to debar the civil servants from giving quality education to their own children? It doesn't make sense. That is discrimination. If you don't want anybody to go abroad for schools, then you must make a law that says, look, nobody is in the public service as politicians or as a civil servant should go to private schools.
Political office holders.
The political office holders. And then you now equip these schools to be able to meet the challenges of providing modern qualitative education to all our children.
Okay, let's quickly move to the second topic for discussion, where we seem to be having lots of oil marketers coming to oppose what Dangote is doing, and one of the marketers that have added its voice to this criticism is the Natural Oil and Gas Suppliers Association of Nigeria, NOGASA. They warned that the Dangote Petroleum Refinery's plan to bypass existing distribution channels and supply refined products directly to end users would lead to a nationwide disruption, long-term product scarcity, and the collapse of existing supply networks. Do you agree with that?
My brother, it would appear to me that war is going on in that sector presently. Real war. And it may have started when Dangote opened up refineries and began to produce. You know, his takeoff was very, very rough. There were all manners of oppositions and then alleged sabotage.
Lots of roadblocks for him.
Exactly, put on his way and what have you. And not only that, the man Dangote also alleged that some people have gone to Togo, they have gone to some other African countries and then on the oceans and all that. They established a blended plan. He also accused the NNPC as one period, even the NNPC denied it, but it has been proven right now that the NNPC was not producing anything, they were merely blending. And there are different refineries in Warri, Port Harcourt and Kaduna. And with the intent to sabotage is a fact. So if that has been the case, it's not impossible that the Dangote man, seeing that those people are not relenting, he himself is beginning to fight back. Because he keeps complaining that they continue to import substandard fuel into the country, some substandard fuel into the country, so as to undermine the price mechanism. So that whatever he produces, if he's unable to sell abroad, then there will be no market for it internally. So, but to ensure that is able to sell, the man may have taken steps because we were told he bought more than 400 trucks to begin to supply to the different petrol stations and depots and what have you directly. I am not aware
4,000 tankers actually.
It's even for I'm not aware there's any law that stops Dangote from doing direct from selling his products directly to whomever he may please. If he don't sell it to every dick and Harry and what have you, you remember that MRS appears to be an affiliate of Dangote, in that it is owned by one of the extended Dangote family people. If he chooses a loan to begin to sell directly to MRS, and he empowers MRS to establish so many petrol stations all over the country and what have you, then we will be able to do whatever he wants to do. Also forget that the NNPC has also set a precedent in that area. The NNPC went all over the country establishing NNPC petrol stations where their prices are dictated by only the NNPC and what have you. So if the NNPC have done it in the past and all that, I don't think there should be anything that would stop undermine Dangote from doing similar exercises. We should only appeal to the regulatory authority that they should do everything possible to ensure that Dangote does not create a monopoly in that sector.
Exactly.
Not as it was alleged that he had created a monopoly in the sugar sector.
But apart from even the monopoly, don't you think the fears is what looking at in terms of supply? Because Dangote is just one industry. And when you compare that to the population of Nigeria, that's a huge undertaking. Do you think Dangote will be able to do this alone?
Well, it's going to be difficult, no doubt about it. Nigeria is a very huge country with very massive land and then a huge population. So, if a company or a petroleum refiner to also take on the responsibilities of distribution all over the country may be Herculean. And you must also remember that the infrastructures are not there in terms of the road network. In the past, very few tankers carry petrol from the port to the different parts of the country. There were pipelines that were laid from the port that go to different parts, to different depots and then stock deposits all over the country and to the other parts of the country and other. Most of which have been damaged or vandalized by our people. So he will now have to begin to transport most of those things by road. And if he begins to do that, that means a massive investment in those trucks that we are talking about. But also remember that the man has a truck assembly plant in Ikeja, where they manufacture buses and then these oil tankers that can carry fuel from different places and other. So it would have been better for us to have a division of labor in that area so that let the man concentrate on just refining the crude oil and then let some other persons by division of labor begin to distribute and then resell them. This is where the regulatory authorities will have to come in to ensure that the right things are done in that sector so that the country as a whole will not suffer. And then the Dangote refinery will not become a failure because we have had so many institutions in this country that have failed. That could have failed, isn't it? And we have some banks in the past that were established by the federal government to minister to the industrialists, to the industries and then the manufacturing companies in the country. We had in the past, we have Volkswagen manufacturing company in Lagos. We have Leland in Ibadan. We have Tia in Bauchi, and then we have Pojo Somobul in Kaduna. But because of competition from outside and war and all that, all those companies couldn't survive. They couldn't. We have the factory, manufacturing company in Ibadan, war. Now we are importing factory from Turkey and some of these other places. Whereas these are things that we have developed the factory to really produce. Yeah? The Nigerian airlines, especially the business class, they are not disciplined at all. The indiscipline among them is very high. Unlike probably their Indian counterparts. The Indian counterparts will make sure that you don't kill the goose that lays the golden egg. And when they want to farm out an asset they cannot efficiently handle another, they make sure that it goes to a member of the family, that the country benefits from it. You see an average Indian company in Nigeria, most of the equipment they import to the country to do their processing or manufacturing come from India. The vehicle that the officials or staffers of the company use are from India. The clothes that even the people, the Indians in Nigeria wear, are clothes that are coming from India. Most of their food, they also import those things from India. This is a kind of internal linkages that help a country to develop and also grow. So the regulatory authorities should please intervene. And if they don't intervene, whoever may feel injured by what Dangote is doing and know that can seek redress in the court of law because the law flies at a monopoly and know that the law does not allow you to create a monopoly to disadvantage of the citizens.
Okay. Sorry, because of time, this is where we stop the conversation. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Barrister Kolawole. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Stay blessed.
Thank you.
Have a lovely weekend.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
That was Tunde Kolawole, a legal practitioner and a current affairs analyst. Let's quickly take a look at what's happening outside Nigeria. The United States President Donald Trump has signed an executive order reimposing reciprocal tariffs ranging from 10% to 41% on U.S. import from dozens of countries and foreign locations. Separately, Trump also signed an executive order late on Thursday that increased tariffs in certain Canadian goods, with the White House accusing Ottawa of failing to cooperate in curbing the ongoing flood of fentanyl and other illicit drugs entering the U.S. In a statement on Thursday titled "Further Modifying the Reciprocal Tariff Rates," the U.S. listed some 69 trading partners and the respective adjusted tariff rate. U.S.-bound export from some of Washington's major trading partners, including Australia and the United Kingdom, will be subject to a baseline rate of 10%. Other trade partners will see tariffs of 15% or more. Trump cited the continued lack of reciprocity in the bilateral trade relationships in a statement on the White House website, announcing the reimposition of the tariffs. Most of the announced tariffs will not go into effect until August 7, except for tariffs on Canada, which take effect today, August 1. The White House said that the delay will give Customs and Border Protection time to adjust to the changed environment. Still on international news, El Salvador's ruling party has passed a bill to overhaul how elections are run in the Central American nation, opening the door for President Nayib Bukele to serve another term. On Thursday, 57 Congress members voted in favor and 3 voted against a constitutional amendment that will allow indefinite presidential re-election, extend terms from 5 years to 6, and scrap election runoffs. Bukele won a second term last year despite a clear prohibition in the country's constitution. El Salvador's top court, filled with Bukele-backed judges, ruled in 2021 that it was the leader's human right to run again. After his re-election last year, Bukele told reporters that he didn't think a constitutional reform would be necessary, but evaded questions on whether he would try to run for a third term. With Thursday's constitutional reforms, Bukele, who enjoys enormous support at home for his heavy-handed campaign against criminal gangs, will be able to run again. The overhaul will also shorten the president's current term to synchronize elections in 2027, as presidential, legislative and municipal elections are currently staggered. And finally, on sports news, the Super Eagles forward Victor Osimhen has completed his permanent switch to Turkish giants Galatasaray in a deal worth 75 million euros. Galatasaray announced the statement on the Nigeria, who spent last season on loan from Napoli, on Thursday. The 26-year-old inked a 4-year deal with the Turkish champions and will be paid 15 million euros per season. Osimhen will also get an extra 1 million euro loyalty bonus and another 5 million euros for image rights. The club said additionally, under the terms of the agreement, 10% of the profit from the player's next sale will be paid to SSANU Napoli SPA. The latest contract also restricts him from joining Serie A clubs in the next 2 years. The Nigerian forward scored 37 goals and recorded 8 assists in 41 games for the Yellow and Reds last season as they won the domestic double. Thursday's announcement ends a 2-year transfer saga between him and Napoli, a fractured relationship that saw him frozen out of the team at the start of the last campaign. And that ends the news, but before we go, let's take a look at our top stories again. The federal government provides policy and approves policies to regulate trade unions' activities that promote strike. LASU faces shutdown as ASUU, SSANU and other staff unions begin indefinite strike. Marketers warn against the disruption as Dangote plans direct fuel supply. Federal government eyes 796 billion naira annually from 5% petrol surcharge. Biodun Olujimi downplays ADC, believing the party doesn't have clout to defeat Tinubu in 2027. From our stories outside Nigeria, Trump sets new tariffs on dozens of countries' export. And in sports, Victor Osimhen completes transfer to Galatasaray in record €75 million deal. And that's the world news at 12. I am Solomon Ofem. Do follow our social media handles at VOP903FM. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at VOP903FM. Good afternoon and thank you for listening.